Welcome to the Podunk Polymath, a podcast dedicated to the sentiments of a secular, sarcastic, screwed-up Southern SJW and skeptic. I'm your host, Chris. Come on in. This is episode 28 of the Podunk Polymath Podcast. Thanks again for joining me. I hope y'all had a good weekend. This week on the pre-ramble, I got a couple things I wanted to talk about. First of all is, of course, you can't get away from the orange overlord papaya. I forgot the papaya prick. That's all I'm going to say. I don't care. He gave a press conference, I think it was Thursday or Friday, where he basically just babbled and made absolutely no fucking sense. He called the press like evil, basically the enemy of the state. He didn't say the state, but he might as well have, which of course is dangerous talk and something that somebody else might have said back in the day, let's say in Germany in the 40s. Fuck Godwin's law when Godwin's law actually is relevant. So, yeah, he babbled. He made no sense. It was pathetic and scary at the same time. It would have been funny if it weren't so sad, and you got to keep from crying by laughing. So I'm going to put a link up to the news conference, but I don't know what to say anymore. I mean, what can you really say anymore? The outrage is trying to die out, but we got to keep the outrage going because this shit is not normal. This man is, oh my God, what is wrong with this man? He's just so full of himself. He thinks he can just say anything and it's just fine, but it's not. You know what? I'm going to put the video up, the link to the video, and you can make your own decisions on this. But trust me, anybody with half a brain can tell this is just over the top, incoherent rambling, and definitely not something that the president of the motherfucking United States should be saying. So, oh God. Anyway, also I wanted to just talk about another press conference he gave. I think it was yesterday, and I just was reading up on it. This man's talking shit about immigration in Europe, then decides he's going to bring up the shit that happened in Sweden, except not a fucking thing happened in Sweden. And guess where he got his info from? Most likely from right-wing news. Breitbart and, their ilk, who were saying that Sweden is one of the cases of immigration gone wild, basically, in Europe. And he tried to make a claim that something had happened in Sweden when not a fucking thing happened in Sweden. And so there's this joke going around, remember IKEA, kind of like the Bowling Green Massacre, I mean, like I said before, you want to stop talking about Trump, but he keeps doing shit that makes you have to talk about it. I mean, quit doing this ignorant ass shit and I won't have to say anything. I mean, really, quit getting your facts from fucking Fox News, Breitbart, Daily Caller, whatever the fuck else. Stop doing it. Anyway, okay. I'm calm. But anyway, people make fun of the Swedish government's like, man, this guy, it doesn't even know what he's talking about. So, also, of course, you may or may not have seen, it was everywhere on my Facebook page. The Bill Maher show, Real Time with Bill Maher, had Milo on it. He was there for the little pre-interview before the panel, and he was on overtime. First of all, let me mention that I love me some Jeremy Scahill. He decided to bow out of the panel because he was scheduled to be on there. He wrote this big, long explanation of why, basically because Bill was giving Milo a platform. And he was nicer than I would have been because Jeremy's like, well, I've been a correspondent for this show before and I have respect for Bill and all this bullshit. I have no respect for this motherfucker anymore. Not that I really did, and I haven't for a while, but especially now. So he bowed out because of that. He gave him a platform, didn't really challenge him, even though I really like, everybody's like, oh, he challenged him. No, they had white privilege day is what happened. It's easy to sit there and talk about, marginalized people who can potentially die from this kind of speech. Like it's just kind of a theory, like it's just kind of, we're just sitting here having a conversation over beer when you're not fucking directly affected by it, when your life isn't directly in danger from it. So it was just horrible. And then on the overtime, Milo was sitting there saying transphobic shit, like, people, the oft-repeated trope about grown men peeing next to little girls in the bathroom and all this shit. And basically Bill Maher's like, oh yeah, Yeah, I agree with that. I think I can see that. No, what are you even talking about? You've had other people on there before who have told you why that's bullshit. But you just sit here and agree with this fucker? No, Bill, you're fucked. Fuck you. And fuck Milo. And Larry Wilmore said as much. Larry Wilmore is on there. This motherfucker needs a show because the way he got kicked off, the later show or whatever it was on Comedy Central's bullshit. So he needs another show, definitely. But he basically told Milo to go fuck himself. And he should have told Bill Maher to do that, but it was his show. I guess he felt like he really couldn't, but he should have. But he's like, yeah, go fuck yourself. And then there was another dude there who was like a former CIA official, apparently, and he told him to go fuck himself too. So, and of course his argument, you're just those crazy liberals are just giving him, what he wants. He wants the attention. Well, Bill shouldn't have given him a platform to begin with, as far as I'm concerned. This fucker needs to be deplatformed whenever possible. But that's just my opinion. And some people can go eat a dick, as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, Milo, Bill Maher, both go fuck themselves. And I don't know. You need to go watch the show if you can. The video of the overtime's on YouTube. And that is the crux of it, plus the pre-interview, which I'm sure you can find in other places or whatever. So, yeah, that was disgusting, and I'm really pissed off about it, and a lot of people are too. The fact that Bill Maher, who is just he needs to quit. He needs to just step down and go away now and let John Oliver take over, who actually made a series of commercials for Fox News that are paid, basically telling Trump, since Trump loves to watch Fox News all the time, he's putting shit on there like, oh yeah, giving them real information about stuff and sneaking it on there. I love it. It's great. So John Oliver needs to be the new face. Bill Maher needs to go away now. So that's what I got from the pre-ramble this week. I also wanted to mention I got a review on iTunes, another review. It's from Corin NYGD, sorry, and I already know it. She was a guest on the show, one about human trafficking. So she says, the name of it's Listen or I'll Beat You Up. Awesome show, awesome host, important topics, keep it up. So thank you, Corin, and thank you for inciting violence on people who do not listen to the show. That's great. We don't want to go around punching guests, although we might want to punch Nazis. So thanks, Corin, for leaving that review. I also wanted to thank Trav Mamone from, of course, the By Skeptical Podcast and By Any Means Podcast for doing a promo for NaNoCon, which I shall be playing during the promo section. I had said I was going to, but I was lazy and I ran out of time. So he decided he was going to do it without any prompting from me. So I really appreciate that. And I hope you enjoy it. Of course, Trav is great at this sort of thing, so I'm sure it'll be awesome. So, again, thanks to Trav. And, of course, don't forget, NaNoCon is coming March 18th at McGavock High School here in Nashville, Tennessee. The keynote speaker is Matt Dillahunty, but also there will be J.T. Eberhardt, Mandisa Thomas. I found out Jim Helton from the Tri-State Freethinkers is going to be giving a talk. And Callie Wright's going to be doing a panel. Of course, there's going to be a podcaster panel with yours truly on it. And so much more. Panels, workshops, people selling stuff, awesomeness in general. The website's NashvilleNuns.com, and it says on there what workshops and panels are going to be featured. They've put that stuff up now, plus discounts, where it is, lodgings, all that good stuff. So definitely go check out NashvilleNuns.com. Of course, you can look it up on Facebook under Nashville Nuns, and on Twitter at Nashville Nuns, and I am sort of in charge of the Twitter and Facebooks for them, so most tweets are mine, and Facebook posts, so isn't that super wonderful? This week on The Palaver, I have another roundtable about non-binary gender and gender fluidity, and it's a great discussion, and I learned a lot from it, so y'all stay tuned and listen to The Palaver, and I hope you enjoy it.
A lost state of mind. Some version of the meaning of life. Look for it. February 28th. It's coming up soon.
Hi friends, are you a non-believer living in the Bible Belt? Do you want to meet some amazing atheists but have a limited budget? Then check out the Nashville Nuns Conference, or NaNoCon for short, which will be held on March 18th, 2017 in Nashville, Tennessee. This year's speakers include Matt Dillahunty, Mandisa Thomas, J.T. Eberhard, Gail Jordan, Jim Helton, Callie Wright, and St. Patrick, with musical guests the Sunday Assembly Nashville Band and Chibi Kodama. Just go to NashvilleNuns.com to register because it's February and I'm just now getting to producing this promo.
Welcome to another edition of the Palaver here on the Podunk Polymath Podcast. This week we have another roundtable discussion. This time it's talking about the non-binary gender. First of all, let's go ahead and define non-binary gender. Also, some people say genderqueer, and some people find that, iffy, but we'll say that too. Describes any gender identity which does not fit the male and female binary. So we'll go ahead and proceed from that. First of all, we have Ari Stillman. Their pronouns are they, them, there, and co-host of the Gaytheist Manifesto and the SJ Circle Jerk.
SJW Circle Jerk, actually.
Is that what I said?
Thank you very much. You said SJ Circle Jerk.
Whatever, same fucking difference.
Yeah.
So how you doing, Ari?
Surviving the Trump-pocalypse somehow.
I said that today, actually. Okay. And we also have Katie Quesnel, she likes to be called. Damn it. I'm going to have problems. And they, let's see, when I'm online, I like to go by Kate or Kit. I don't know. I'm kind of a jerk. No, we're not going to go with that. They have a blog sometimes on Facebook called Don't Call Me Lady, and there's a link I will share. How's it going, Katie?
Well, I, for one, am not surviving the Trump-pocalypse. I'm actually dead right now, so.
Holy shit.
We need to get a scientist on that.
It was the Bowling Green Massacre, wasn't it? I knew it was.
Oh
no.
I knew there would be a body count.
It had to happen eventually.
And then we have William. They didn't put any. I'm just saying how.
It's fine.
They didn't put anything on the intro because they were told to, but they didn't do it. So
I'm lazy.
yeah, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who you are?
Well, I identify as wine sexual.
Okay. Yeah, you are an official wine.
That was actually Ari's term.
That's right. It's just too many things being thrown in.
Yeah.
LGBTQ, now there's a W in there.
Yeah, it came up.
Things are
the
changing
other
so
day.
fast, I can't keep up.
Yeah, it came up the other day because Ari and Callie ridiculed me on their show. So.
Well, I did. Callie tried to defend you.
So in reality, I've pretty much settled on the agender label at this point because I'm not exactly sure, but I feel like my base state, I guess, like my internal base state, I sort of feel ambivalent about the whole thing.
Okay, I mean, that's cool.
So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, that's cool. I would like to mention Ari and William have both been on the show as guests previously, even though Ari was eclipsed by Jeremiah because he's so much more awesome and
sexy and adorable.
Okay, and okay.
I don't know about that, but he does give good hugs.
I don't know.
And kisses and cuddles.
Okay,
Yeah, I wouldn't know about that.
Yeah,
We were in a hotel, but it wasn't like that.
Alrighty then. A polyamory show was last week.
Oh, no! It was the Reason Rally thing.
Yeah, and you didn't invite me on the polyamory show because you're an asshole.
I put out a call. Okay, Ari, you were just too busy circle jerking or whatever the fuck you do.
Probably.
Anyway, so, and Katie actually was not on personally, but I read her letter on another episode, so So y'all been on one way or another. So.
Oh, I remember that letter. That was so good.
Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed it. It really moved me, to be honest with you. To hear that kind, I heard the emotion, and I heard the kind of struggle. So, yeah. I mean, I think it got a lot of people, to be honest with you, even though they wouldn't tell me, I guess. But anyway, so all y'all introduced, and let's go ahead and for each of y'all, what label do you use? Do you use a label? Or just kind of describe what you feel. Let's start with you, Ari.
Non-binary works. I mean, non-binary is an umbrella term, really. There are lots of different sub-labels within that. There's, like William said, agender. There's gender fluid. There's neutra. There's a whole bunch of different stuff. And I don't really care to pick any one of those because my understanding of my gender really, it's not really important for anyone else to know what that is, as long as they know how to refer to me and how I like to be, with the pronouns and the name and all that other stuff, and not using, gendered words for me. The specifics of like what % male and what % female and what % alien I feel like are like, that's my business. That's not anyone else's business. So personally, I just go with non-binary. Of course, I don't have a problem with anyone else using any other label that they like. But for me, it works.
Okay. How about you, Katie?
I think non-binary works too. So lately I've been referring to myself as demigirl because it kind of works more for like explaining to people, because I'm not androgynous. I am pretty feminine, and I'm always read as female. So I think it's just easier to say demigirl than to say non-binary because it confuses people,
I haven't heard the term demigirl. What does that mean?
Well, it's defined as being feminine and not having, well, it says online, I looked up online, it says it is associated with not having any dysphoria, which is not really true for me personally. I do have some dysphoria, but yeah, I think it's just feminine, non-binary.
Okay, I need to definitely put that in the show notes because I hadn't heard that previously.
I've heard people use that term who say that they tend towards the feminine side of things, or they're like mostly a girl, but not entirely a girl.
Okay.
I don't feel like I'm a girl at all, though. I don't feel comfortable being referred to as a girl. I don't know. It's just...
Okay, it's okay.
It's not okay. You have to choose right now. Pick one.
Okay, and how about you, William?
So, I went through, I don't know, I guess kind of like a soul searching process 2 years ago. And I was thinking about this kind of stuff a lot. And some of my close friends, I was always I was asking them hey, so I think about these things and is this strange? And then I found out a lot of them also think about the same things, and also several friends remembered that years ago, I don't know, 8 years ago, that I would mention things to them sometimes. But I guess that when I first came out, I came out as gay. Well, actually, really, I came out as bi in high school because everybody did back then.
I remember those times. And I was like, hey, I'm actually bi. And people were like, no, it's a phase. You're doing it for attention.
Right? Yeah, and then they don't believe you. And then, later on, I came out as gay. But, so friends of mine would remember, that even though I had come out as gay, I would say things to them, I would just ask people, do you feel like your genitals dictate your gender? Does your penis make you feel like a man? I know that's a weird question, but it I never felt like I had that mind body social connection to other people. I feel like I'm not explaining it very well.
No, just, I mean,
Uh,
I can understand what you're saying.
Give us the label and move on.
no, I'm trying to explain the thought process behind it, but I've settled on the agender label for now because I'm not sure. Like, sometimes I feel kind of feminine, but also I can be masculine too, but like, I don't really want to be like a man or a woman.
I can kind of understand that. I feel like kind of the same way. Like, I used to identify as gender fluid, but I mean, it's not like really my gender changes. It's just like the kind of how I choose to express it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. And so there's someone who follows my boyfriend on Twitter who, like, I don't know if they're a blogger or what they do, but in their little, like, descriptor on Twitter, they describe themselves as agender butch creature. And that kind of has always made sense to me. Like, I kind of feel like the same thing applies to me.
Ari, I guess I should have asked you this before, but I have heard you on other shows, I believe, kind of, do you have I don't know if scientific is the right word, but kind of a basis for, because I know you're all into that psychology stuff or whatever.
All that made-up science.
Yeah, all that fucking, like L. Ron Hubbard said, all that made-up science or whatever. What kind of, can you give us kind of a brief background of what gender fluidity is, I guess?
Well, there's not really much research in this area. It's a huge, I don't know what the correct word is. Like there's some research on binary trans people, but the research hasn't really caught up yet. I'm sure it's in the works because, things have been moving more in that direction, but science is a long process, especially in psychology. It can take many years to do a study because you're working with people. Whereas, in a physical science, you just need to get your samples of whatever bacteria you're looking at or whatever. And in psychology, you have to worry about ethics and all that stupid shit. But so I'm sure it's coming down the pipeline, but there's not really much in the way of non-binary gender identity in psychology. I'm sure there is in sociology, but I'm not terribly familiar with any of that research because I am, I'm a psychology person. I don't really know the methodology of sociology that much, but there is a lot of, well, not a lot, but there's a good amount of research on binary transgender identity, and I have a big old document that I can just send you the link for the episode when I was on No Religion Required, and I did a God Hates Facts segment where I talked about the science behind gender and sexuality for like 45 minutes or so. So that'll give people a good background on that kind of thing. But unfortunately, yeah, there's not a lot of research in non-binary stuff, and it's hard to do because it's really hard to define this kind of thing. We've been talking about all these different labels that people use, and a lot of people use different labels to mean different things, and it's difficult to like measure somebody's gender identity. There's not a sample you can take to measure it. You just have to ask them about it because it's an identity. It's not something physical about them. Well, it is physical in the sense that there's differences in the brain, but it's you can't, give them a lobotomy and look at their brain and be able to tell their gender just based on that. It's a really complicated thing that science is working on, hopefully. Not my area of research because I'm a jerk and I prefer to look at how kids get messed up, but there you go.
Oh, so basically it doesn't fucking exist because science hadn't proven it.
No.
I have a question for Ari.
Yeah.
One of the first podcasts I heard about anything outside of the binary was a podcast called Invisibilia, and not to plug another podcast, sorry. But I was just re-listening to it the other day, and they were trying to say that a lot of psychologists attribute gender fluidity to multiple personality disorder. I think that's what it's called.
No, that's not true. I don't know what the fuck they got that from, but first of all, multiple personality disorder is not a diagnosis. It's called dissociative identity disorder, and it has been for a while. Anyway, I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at whoever said that because they're spreading transphobia and also mental illness stigma.
Yeah.
Wow.
But what'd they say, Katie?
they made it seem like this person had like it was more of a mental problem, and they made it seem like really strange. Like, oh my God, I'll say she, because at the end she started taking hormones, I think, and she decided that she was a trans woman. But like before she started taking hormones, she kind of like went in and out of like feeling masculine and feminine, and it would kind of be like, you know, depending on the social situation, which I can kind of understand, but they made it seem like it was so weird. Like, how strange is this that their gender is so fluid and that they can feel one way, you know, in a certain social situation, another. And it's like, to me, I'm just like, well, that's how I feel. Like, why is that? Am I strange?
No.
Yes, very strange.
No, yeah. No, I mean, what you feel is what you feel, and I think it's, like Ari said, it's ultimately irresponsible and very possibly damaging to people to say shit like it's multiple personality disorder.
So what would you say to someone who says that it's a mental disorder?
It's not, because the definition of a psychological disorder is that it causes impaired functioning and that it it causes distress in the person. Being non-binary or any type of trans does not necessarily cause distress. The only distress that people feel is from dysphoria, which, you know, getting hormones and whatever surgeries are required greatly alleviates that. Yes, exactly. And there, you know, research is coming out like, hey, if you treat trans kids the gender that they tell you they are, it turns out they're not depressed and anxious. Wow. If you do the thing that they've been telling you they want you to do, it turns out their lives get better.
That makes too much sense for our society.
Yeah. So there is a diagnosis in the DSM-5 of gender dysphoria, and that is not necessarily a diagnosis that every trans person would get, because that is reserved for people who feel significant distress and impairment because of their gender dysphoria, and it's mostly just for insurance purposes. You know, when you go to a therapist, to bill your insurance, they have to put a diagnosis. They have to submit a diagnosis to your insurance company, or else your insurance isn't going to cover whatever treatment you get. So that's pretty much just what it is. It's just so they know how to help you. It's not to give you a label or stigmatize you or say there's something wrong with you. It's just so they can bill your insurance and you can go in and get whatever social support or hormones or surgeries that you need to get.
That's why Ari is like the ruler of the Enbys, you know, because they know
Science,
all this
bitches.
shit. Yeah, that's right. So I'm curious to know how y'all reached kind of this conclusion that y'all were different. Different in quotes, scare quotes, but Enbys, I guess. How did y'all realize
Enbys.
this? Ari, why don't you go ahead and...
I've been talking so much. I mean, people have heard my story in various places, so I won't get too much into it. But basically, I started realizing that I wasn't fitting in with the female label. I think early in puberty probably was when it started. There were signs before that. Like I could go back in and watch videos of me from when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I have the exact terrible little boy humor, making terrible jokes and laughing at them. And I was actually really androgynous too. But anyway, so there were signs before that, but I didn't realize myself that there was anything strange. I don't know if strange is the right word. That's kind of self-stigmatizing. Internalized transphobia. So anyway, I was just like, why don't I feel like I fit in with anyone? I guess it's just because I'm weird. And then I started having dreams that I had a penis, and I was like, this is pretty cool. I would like to have a penis, but also like my vagina isn't that bad either. Like I don't hate it. And I just kept on going on like that. And it wasn't until in college when I got involved in my campus LGBTQ group and met someone who identified as genderqueer. And I had never heard of that before, because I thought that being transgender was a completely binary thing. So when I had heard before about transgender people, it was always, you know, trans men and trans women. And I knew that I wouldn't be happy or comfortable with myself being seen as a man. So I thought I couldn't be trans. I thought I was just kind of, you know, a weird girl or whatever. So thanks to Google and this person who opened me up to the world of genderqueer funness, I did research online, and within a few weeks, I was like, yeah, this definitely explains a lot of what I've been feeling.
Of course, you said it before 100 times, but that's okay. You got the story down, so that's good.
There you go.
William, how about your journey?
I think I never really conformed, like, even as a child. Like, my parents definitely knew that I didn't conform to these types of things when I was a kid, because, like, when I talk to them now, they're like, yeah, you never really conformed. And I don't really remember conforming to the gender stuff. Like, in school, like elementary school, you're supposed to, be a certain way and all that. And I'm trying to think of good examples. I can think of, like, going to weddings when I was a kid and wondering, like, why the fuck can't I participate in, like, the bouquet toss or something? I don't even know if that's a good example, but it wasn't that I wanted to be a woman. It was just, like, I couldn't understand why, like, there were such strict, like, rules or guidelines.
Okay.
That's probably not a good example.
No, it's what you feel, and that seems to make sense to me. I mean, I can understand where kind of the idea that you think certain gender roles have to be one or the other, have to be for men or women, where in fact it should be just for either one or neither.
I mean, I struggle with that because sometimes I wonder if could I just be against gender roles? So I struggle with this stuff inside of myself because, like, I always want to be careful and make sure that I'm not, like, misrepresenting other people while trying to figure out what I am or what I need, basically. Especially when I got older, I was definitely aware that I didn't conform, but I had no language for it. I mean, it's like what Ari says, and it's like what so many people say. I didn't have language for, I didn't know anything about that there could be anything other than, like, very, 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 like, binary people, whether they're, like, cis people or trans people. Like, probably not until I was 25 or anything did I ever hear anything about non-binary or genderqueer or, like, anything like that. So, and I tried to conform myself to, like, society for a long time.
That seems to be everybody, unfortunately.
But I should add something.
Okay.
I tried to fit in with, like, gay guys for a long time, and I couldn't do it. Like, I did not click. I don't click with them. I mean, obviously, like, I have some gay male friends, but, like, I didn't really fit in with those people. Like, I never knew what it was, but I was just like, something is not, like, this is not my place. Like, I don't know.
Okay.
And I think now that there's more language for it, I probably have a much better understanding of, like, maybe I didn't fit in with them because I wasn't exactly one of them.
That makes sense.
But an interesting thing I came across back when I was dating, there was a trans man that I had talked to a bit online. We never went on a date or anything, but he had a really interesting thing in his profile saying that he was probably more, like, culturally, like, butch or dyke or lesbian or something like that than a lot of people might imagine, something along those lines. And now it's been several years since then or whatever, and now that I kind of, like, have more language and I feel more comfortable with things, now I can go back and I can be like, okay, I can be culturally gay or whatever. Like, I can understand, like, that person, what they wrote. I just thought it was interesting.
Okay.
Like, I think it's possible to be culturally gay, but also the reason why I didn't fit in is maybe because I wasn't quite the same gender as those people.
That makes sense. What about you, Katie?
I was a pretty self-aware child. I never really felt comfortable with the labels, like, girl or lady. I always felt uncomfortable. And, anyone who knew me when I was a kid will tell you that I was a tomboy, which is funny because now I love girly things like makeup and Disney princesses. But I think, like they said, before I even had a label for it, I kind of knew that I wasn't a girl, but also, like, when I started to explore transgender as a concept, I knew that I wasn't a trans man. That just didn't feel right. And I did listen. The first time I ever heard about, gender fluidity was on that podcast, and it just gave me kind of a negative feeling about it. Like, this is what I feel like, but maybe it's not such a good thing. Maybe I shouldn't talk about it. But then I came across this show, this little show called Gaytheist Manifesto, if you've heard of it.
No, I hadn't heard of it.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I think that's helped me a lot in thinking about it more positively.
I'm sad. I don't want to be your role model. I'm going to let you down.
Why not?
It really is. Cats and dogs living together. Mass hysteria.
Indeed.
I was thinking of something interesting.
Okay.
My parents never, forced me to have certain toys when I was a kid. And so I always had, Barbies and action figures. And, nobody said anything to me. Nobody ever said, you can't have girl toys, you can't have boy toys. So I had both. I guess I got lucky with my parents.
Yeah, I did not have that experience.
Yeah, I had a little mermaid, and she would play with Star Trek people, and no one said anything to me.
I mean, I guess I had it, growing up as, someone who was assigned female at birth. I had it a little bit easier in terms of, as a kid, I was able to pretty much do what I wanted because there's not as much stigma about a girl playing video games as there is about a boy playing with Barbies. So I was able to do a lot of that kind of stuff that I bet a lot of people who were assigned male at birth weren't able to do as kids. And I was going to say something else and I totally forgot. Oh, I realized a few years ago that I started, I think when I was about 12 or 13, I started asking my mom if I could buy boys' clothes just because I liked the way, and I didn't want to replace my whole wardrobe. I just wanted to have some shorts and some t-shirts and that kind of stuff. And she was so against it and she wouldn't let me do it. And at that time I was like, why are you being so ridiculous? It's just clothes. What's the difference? I just like the way this looks. So can I have these shorts instead of these other shorts that are for girls or whatever? And she was totally against it because she's a conservative Christian, very black and white kind of thinker and not educated on the gender things. And finally, one time when I was 15 or 16, I wore her down and she let me try on some boys' shorts and I didn't end up buying them because they didn't fit. And I was so sad. Oh. Because I was a little skinny kid. And so I'm short and everything. So the masculine proportion clothing doesn't usually work for me. So I was very sad, but I finally wore her down that one day. It was ridiculous. Even when I was going to college, I wanted to buy some sheets that were brown and blue stripes. And she said, no, those are for boys. You can't have those. I was like, Mom, I'm 18 years old. I'm going to college. There's no such thing as boys sheets. Okay. They're brown and blue. That's what I wanted to get.
Those sound like nice colors.
Yeah. I liked them. That's just the thing I just can't understand. Why are people so attached to that kind of thing? It's just colors. The Bible, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not even just people who identify as conservative. It's just in general, I think. People, it's just our society, our country especially, is just so puritanical bullshit. It's so shot through in our culture in general that it's just people just think that even if they're not outwardly, religious.
Yeah. They still get caught up on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when Target fucking, what do?
They took the boys and girls signs off the toys or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, here's toys for children."
They threw a fit. Oh my goodness! You'd have thought they were just, priests raping kids. Oh wait, they don't care about that. Never mind.
Yeah, that's just
come on, seriously? I mean, we gonna have enough problems in this country without you worrying about some silly shit like that? I mean, that's just ridiculous,
Yeah, you don't have to be non-binary to see that that's just like there's no reason behind it. It's just people have been raised to think this way, and they don't care to stop and think about why it is that they believe this, and does this actually make sense? They just, they take it on its face. That's how I was taught, so that's how it is.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, for sure.
I can't think that simplistically. I've never been able to.
Well, unfortunately, most people, I don't think we're trained in critical thinking, so.
Thanks, Betsy DeVos.
I don't think I was. I don't think I was trained in critical thinking, but I think I just got lucky and, I just naturally leaned towards it.
As far as, are you all open in your out and open in your daily life? I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but Ari, why don't you go ahead?
Yes, pretty much. Except for at work, that's the only place where my coworkers call me by she, her pronouns, because I've worked there for almost a year and a half, and it's I've waited way too long to have this conversation, because when I first started there, I was really anxious about it, and my boss actually knows about it, and he's really cool. So whenever we hang out outside of work, he calls me by they, them pronouns, but he doesn't at work, because I'm just an anxious person, and I don't want to be answering all these questions. So at work, I just go by she, her, and it is annoying, but I just deal with it. Going forward, I'm actually hopefully going to be starting in a master's program. I'm not sure yet where. I'm juggling different options now. And I actually, put they, them pronouns. When my boss wrote me a letter of recommendation, I asked him to use they, them pronouns, because I was like, no, I'm not going to be dealing with she, her anymore. They can live with this stuff. So, outside of that, and I have disowned my family, so I don't have to worry about that. And all my friends are super awesome, and they all use they, them pronouns and are super cool, and my partners are great, and I'm really lucky. So there you go.
I just like how you glided over. Oh yeah, I disown my family. It's fine.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
That's a topic for me to talk about with my therapist, not with you. Okay.
Okay, I understand.
Okay.
How about you, William?
At work, I don't really bother with it, and since I'm trying to get into the wine industry, and I got a couple of emails the past few days for some shops, I think I'm probably just not gonna say anything, because I'm basically trying to get something entry level so I can couple it with all of my other experience that I have, plus the qualifications that I have, because I don't plan on staying at the next job that long, because I would like to do other things with wine. So I'm thinking okay, in the future, when I'm in charge of something, maybe I'll do it. But it depends on what kind of environment I go into. If they seem liberal or whatever, I might talk about it, but otherwise I might just decide not to. But when it comes to every other situation, I don't necessarily bring it up, but also and I don't even always tell people use these pronouns, but sometimes if I go to a party or something and I'm just talking with people, I just tell them things oh, I don't really feel like I have a gender, or I feel that's not that important to me. And then I just see what they say out of curiosity, I guess.
Okay.
So basically, yes, I'm open when I want to be, but I usually just read the situation, because
yeah,
I guess it's
not always worth it to get into that huge conversation about this one tiny thing.
Exactly.
It might not be tiny for some people. Some people, it can cause major dysphoria when people use the wrong pronouns. So they're very, proactive about letting people know about their pronouns and not tolerating people getting them wrong. But for other people, it's not really that big of a deal. So they're just it's just easier to go along with this than to have this conversation a bajillion times.
Yeah, and I feel bad sometimes in two ways, because if somebody just calls me he, that's not particularly bothersome. But when people call me he and couple it with all kinds of other assumptions about me, like it sometimes actually like bothers me emotionally. But on top of that, I often feel bad because I'm like, okay, now we're dealing with this new White House, which is not cool and up to date on this kind of stuff. And I feel like I feel like I should be more forthright because, like, in general, I'm not in a great danger of like getting fired or like harmed because of where I live and all that. And I feel like I should be more forthright for other people, but sometimes it's just too draining to constantly talk about it.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem.
But I should say, I always open my mouth. Like, I've overheard people talking, like, there were some people talking about their coworker, like, oh, they want to have they, them, their now pronouns. And so I just interjected in their conversation, and I was like, so why do you get to pick their pronouns? Like, why do you think you get to pick it?
That makes sense.
And I interject, like, I'm sorry, if I hear people saying, like, transphobic things, I always, like, shut them down. So I feel like I'm still doing my part in a way, basically.
You should definitely do that if you hear it. I would hope anybody would do that.
Most.
Katie, what about you?
As far as work, I'm not out, even though, well, I mean, probably because there's my boss is a trans woman, and she came out while I was working there, and just kind of the reaction from the people really was off-putting. It's a very conservative environment. I work in a factory. I'm a machinist, and there's a lot of men there, and plus we cater a lot to the military. So just kind of their reaction just to like something like that, it was really off-putting to me and made me not want to come out to them. But at the same time, I don't really care. When I first started working there, I really wanted desperately to be one of the guys, you know? But now I don't really care because they're just a bunch of dickheads. I'm like, fuck you guys. Yeah, plus I don't want to deal with the whole like bathroom thing. Like, you know, which bathroom do you want to use? Like, I don't like using the women's bathroom. It makes me uncomfortable, but I think I would be even more uncomfortable if I went in the men's room because, like I said, I'm very feminine. So there's no gender-neutral bathrooms at my work. So I think it'd just be easier for me to stay in the closet. And as far as my family, my boyfriend, as far as my boyfriend is concerned, I'm gender fluid. And the rest of the family doesn't really know, except for my mom. I've kind of been talking to her about it, but I'm really struggling with how to explain it to her.
I have some stories about my family.
That definitely sounds like something that would be difficult to broach, especially with somebody who doesn't really understand the whole concept to begin with.
And I mean, she's very accepting, but like it's hard, I think, when you've grown up in the time that she did, you know?
Yeah, I feel like that excuse is used too much, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, you grew up back. I mean, there are plenty of people. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't exist, and that to some extent that might be true.
Well, I feel like what I mean is that there wasn't really that much information, that she's still learning, you know? Not that she's not tolerant, but that just she's like still kind of processing and like understanding all this new information.
Yeah, I know. It just, some of this stuff just seems to me like a basic idea of just don't be a dick to people.
Well, yeah. Just,
you know, I don't know. I guess it's hard for me to say because I was raised in an environment that I was a military brat, so, and I was kind of let loose or whatever. So maybe my experience is a little different, but it just seems to me that you can basically tell when you're saying something to hurt somebody's feelings in general, that probably isn't a good thing to do, you know, regardless of what that might be. So that's just my idea. I don't know. Other people might see it differently.
I think Katie's right. I see that a little bit with my parents. Like, I think that they're tolerant, but they never really had information. And I mean, considering that I barely had information until I was like 25 or something like that, I can't imagine how they would have had information.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And I don't want to be too harsh on people.
I think a lot of people use that excuse who don't need to use it.
Well, certainly there are people who use it.
Or they just use that excuse so that they can be mean versus they don't use the excuse, it's actually true, but they try really hard to be nice.
Yeah, I think that's probably more something I would depend on. It was the latter. You know, anytime you're using an excuse to try to be an asshole, then I'm just going to think you're an asshole regardless. But if you're trying to make a genuine effort and that's displayed, I mean, you can tell when somebody's trying, okay? And especially when I hate it when certain people like, well, these trans people, they, you know, every time you try, you use a different pronoun, they just go batshit. No, they really don't. You're using a straw man. Not that you know what a straw man actually fucking is. You're redneck. But anyway, yeah, no, that's not how that works. Most people are cool. They're like, you know, like, my pronouns are so-and-so. Like, oh, I'm sorry. And, you know, move on, you know.
Or they just never tell you, and people just assume that they've never peed next to a trans person, but they probably have.
Oh, they most certainly have. That's another fucking thing that just gets on my nerves. But anyway, that's a whole different podcast.
Bathrooms.
Yeah.
I have some stories like about my family, but I don't know if this is like the time to share it.
I mean, you can.
Some funny things like, I think about how they didn't care about what kind of toys I had, but yet now in the present, I can think back to when I originally like came out as gay. My dad like was talking with me like over the holidays or something and was like, so are you going to become a woman? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he really believes in like Taoism and like yin and yang. So he was like, well, isn't it like part of the same thing? Like once you go to like a certain level, like doesn't it just become that? And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure
I am next level gay.
I'm pretty sure it's like two separate things. And I find that amusing because now in the present that I've hinted at him like, hey, I kind of feel indifferent about this and I'm not sure if I really have a gender or like if I'm exactly what I thought you would, or if I'm exactly what I thought or what you thought I am or was. And it's kind of amusing because he seemed to really understand that, even though he seemed all those years ago so ignorant about like trans women versus gay men versus whatever. And I always contrast with my mom, who has always been like more understanding, but who, when I hinted the same things at her, she was like, I think it's that podcast you're listening to, that Gaytheist one you told me about. They must have influenced you. And I was like, well, is it possible that perhaps like there's more resources and maybe I just gained confidence from hearing other people talk about things and then I explored it myself? And she was like, oh, I guess that's possible, because ultimately they don't really care. I just think it's interesting like what their reactions are.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I've gotten that reaction from a lot of people. Like, they don't understand it, but they're like, hey, whatever works for you.
Right. Well, I don't understand it most of the time.
Yeah.
So.
I don't even know how to describe it. Like, I totally understand that you don't get it. Just, you know.
Don't be a...
Yeah, exactly. Don't be a dick. Like we were saying, the whole excuse like, oh, we didn't have all these genders back in my day. Well, yeah, okay, that's true. Well, you had them. You just didn't know what they were. But, you know, we have the internet now. We have lots of resources. You can do your research on this and talk to lots of different people across the world. You know, being ignorant is not necessarily an excuse anymore. You know, you can be ignorant for a period and you could be working towards that. But, you know, once you realize that this is a thing, you know, it's your responsibility to go out and educate yourself on this stuff. And there's, you know, tons and tons of resources out there. So, Like whenever people are complaining about, oh, they keep on adding letters to the LGBT and I just can't keep up. I'm like, just Google it. It's really easy. It's not that hard to learn.
Yeah.
Also, they haven't added that many letters.
Well, it's LBGTIA plus now, I think is what it is, isn't it?
Right, but that's only like 2 more letters than what it was 10 years ago. So please don't tell me that. It's not accurate. It's not so many more letters.
I bet they wouldn't be pissed off if NASCAR added some fucking letters.
I bet you that they would be. Oh, God. I have a question. Has anybody ever heard of a book called Nature's Rainbow, I believe?
I have not.
So I found this like in the library in high school, and I did like a report on it at that time. I really want to go to the library or just like buy it if I can find it. It was written by, I think, an evolutionary biologist who's also a trans woman, and she was like taking research from various countries, and her goal was kind of like to expand Darwin's theory, I guess, or like add to it. And I remember some tidbits from it. Like, I was so fascinated at that, like, I think I was like 16. I was so fascinated by, there are numerous fish species that have like a second male gender that's like slightly smaller and different than the other male gender, and it tends to cooperate with the other type of male and also with the females. And like, so I always think to myself, like, if this exists in the natural world, it makes sense that humans, being more complicated, would have similar things, but it would just be more in our brains than in our bodies, because that's kind of how we've evolved. I mean, obviously this is not like scientifically proven, but it just kind of follows that it seems like that would probably make sense.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I don't really, like Ari said, there's not a whole lot of research either way, I think. But I would think that it's mostly something your brain has developed, rather like sexuality. Gender seems to be on a spectrum. So
yeah,
it seems to me that it's the same kind of deal. I mean, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but it just the research I've seen and the evidence I've seen from just talking to people seems like that seems to be the case. So
it just seems to me, if other animals have more than one gender, why would we expect humans not to?
Because humans are gifts from God. You know, so
well,
that's...
in the case of animals, I wouldn't call that a gender. I would call that a sex. But it is true that there are more than two sexes in humans.
Yeah.
That's something that I talk about in the God Hates Facts thing, that I talked about some different intersex conditions. And, you know, people are always... That's an apologetic that people use against trans people and non-binary people specifically, is like, well, there's just, you know, there's the two sexes. Why should there be more than two genders? Well, there aren't two sexes. There are tons and tons of sexes. You know, the ones that we label male and female are the most common, but they're not the only ones that are out there.
Yeah, I forgot.
And also, you know, another thing I was thinking while you were talking, William, was that another thing people use is like, oh, this is a new thing. Tumblr made it up. You know, people are going off the rails. This is not a Western phenomenon. This is not a modern phenomenon. You know, there are ancient cultures that have recognized genders other than male and female. You know, there are different Native American cultures that have more than two genders. There are Asian cultures. There are all sorts of cultures. Like even today in India and Pakistan, there's a legal third gender. So, you know, it's
they have sworn virgins in Albania.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that Tumblr made up. I don't think they had Tumblr back in you know, hundreds and thousands of years ago.
But they're not white, so.
Oh yes, they can't see it. They can't see it.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, white people are superior, so just go ahead and get that through your skull. Obviously, I'm joking. So, what can people who are cisgender do to, you know, kind of be good allies? Do you think? Ari, sorry.
Do what we tell you.
Obey your,
Exterminate yourself, probably. Remove yourself from the planet so that the transits can take over.
Yeah, obey your trans overlords. Yeah.
I don't know. It's not for me, it's not that difficult of a thing to answer. Just be respectful of what people tell you about their gender. And when you fuck up, don't get defensive. Just be like, hey, I fucked up. And they're going to say, hey, you fucked up. And you'd be like, okay, sorry. And then correct yourself and move on.
But why should I have to, Ari?
You don't have to, but if you want to, have friends, it's a good thing to consider.
Well, that just goes back to my dictum, well, it's not my dictum, but don't be a dick, just as a general rule. If somebody tells you, hey, would you mind calling me, they, them, their as my pronouns, just do it. I just don't understand. I don't understand. It's like I said earlier, these straw men that they set up, like, these transgender people always just want to make you say their pronouns. I mean, shit, they're all up at why they got to be shoved down my throat. And why is it always shoved down their throat? Why is that always the thing to go to?
I think they want something shoved down their throat.
That seems rather interesting to me. But anyway, sorry, I got a little off track there. It just...
I mean, I'll be honest. A couple of years ago, even, when I found out that someone I knew wanted to be called by gender-neutral pronouns, I was like, oh, it's not grammatical. But then it got in my mind, and I was like, wait a minute. And then I was thinking about all the things that I would always think about since I was fairly young, and I was like, oh, shit, I was being an asshole, and also I kind of like that myself, so I'm a double asshole.
Katie, do you have anything to add to that as far as what cis people can do?
Just listen and don't be a D-bag. And also, I think that Ari's telephone example is really helpful for explaining to people who don't think that singular they is grammatically correct.
Yeah, let's ask about as somebody put it on the sheet. What's up with what's the deal with the pronouns? Am I right? I don't know who put that on there. But anyway, what is
that was me.
Okay, I figured. What is the deal with the pronouns, Ari? Why are y'all making us do that?
I mean, there's no real deal about it. It's just, if you call me a she or a he, it's like, what? That doesn't, I don't even know who you're talking about. Like, even at work, when people call me she, sometimes I'm like, I don't understand. It takes me a minute to know who they're talking about, because it just doesn't apply to me. So that's why I use they them pronouns, and there are other pronouns too. There's like ze them, and there's here pronouns. There's all sorts of different ones. Those I've noticed recently in the last few years, those have become a lot less popular, and people are switching more towards they, because again, the whole it's not grammatically correct thing. People are starting to realize that that's not true. But Katie wanted to talk about my example of why they is a common singular pronoun in the English language.
Yes.
It's something that people use all the time, and they don't realize it. I'm doing it right now. They don't realize it. I guess it's multiple people though, so I guess that doesn't make sense. But so say for example that you're at work and someone picks up the phone and they put the phone on hold and they say, hey, you have a phone call. Who's it from? I don't know. They didn't give their name. There you go. You just used a they pronoun, and it was a single person.
I always use a similar
example.
Yeah, I always use a similar example. So
basically, it's just people, and again, we go right back to don't be a dick. You know what? People just don't think. It's something different. That's all it is. People just don't want to. They're afraid of something that's different. That's all it goes back to.
It's different that people want to use it regularly or with frequency, but it's not actually different because it's existed in the English language for a long time. There were a lot of poets, I can't remember which ones, who used it extensively. And then I think there was a period in which poetry, I think this was specifically in England, switched to where if the gender was unknown, you should do he. And I think that was, again, under like the influence of like religion or patriarchy or both, probably both. But there was a time when they was used in poetry, like to talk about sort of like an unknown person. And so it's been around.
And even if it wasn't grammatically correct, who cares? Like language changes. Language is there for us to use in a way that makes sense, and that's why language isn't stagnant. Language is changing all the time, and the reason why people have to have these quote unquote made up pronouns is because the English language hasn't yet adapted for our changing understanding of gender. So the reason why people are using fake made up ones is because, again, the ones that exist aren't covering it. That's how language works.
They're all fucking made up. Words are made up.
Language is made up.
It's not like it came from on high in a golden plates or some shit like Mormonism.
Well, it came from the Tower of Babel. Come on, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like there's some sort of,
English is God's language.
No, I don't think that's how any of this
all the languages came from the Tower of Babel, remember?
English is good enough for
Aren't
Jesus,
you there?
Good enough for me.
That's right. Perfect.
I just thought of another thing, and this one might go over like the heads of rednecks, so it might not be that useful, but you could point out to people that there are many, many, many languages that don't really differentiate like grammatical gender. And so like I believe Chinese, Japanese, Korean, they don't really have a word for he and she. It's just context. There's kind of a pronoun that just is third person, and then the rest is context.
That's certainly, I don't know if that's...
Yeah.
I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty sure I've read that.
It's different in lots of different languages. There are languages that are a lot more strict on the binary than ours. For example, French and Spanish, you change the ending of an adjective to a certain thing depending on whether you're describing a male or a female. So I feel really bad for people that speak Spanish.
Oh,
they,
that doesn't. But that doesn't necessarily apply to gender. Like, for instance, in French, the word for bra is actually masculine gender.
Yeah, that makes
so that doesn't necessarily correspond to the actual gender of like the person who uses it or anything like that.
Well, I'm just talking about Spanish because I speak Spanish. I don't know much about French, but
French,
like,
yeah.
For example, if I'm in love, you could either say enamorado, which means I'm a male who's in love, or enamorada, which means I'm a female.
I didn't know
So
that. Yeah.
if you aren't male or female, you're kind of fucked.
Well, French is just
Spanish language.
French is just completely crazy. Crazy fuck. Ableist. Okay.
There you go.
French. Go ahead, Katie. Katie is. Don't you have a French last name?
Oh yeah. No, I don't speak any French, but I do know sign language, and I was just thinking about it, and that's really interesting that in sign language, all the pronouns are neutral. It's just, you're just kind of gesturing towards the person or like behind you, like them, it's pretty much, it's not really gendered.
Yeah.
I studied sign language for a semester, and I remember that. And the grammar of sign language always reminded me a lot of the grammar of like Japanese, Chinese, or Korean. And also, I'm not trying to say that those three languages are that similar, but just in that they don't really have pronouns that distinguish genders either.
The only thing I can think of is that there's, father, mother, grandmother, grandfather, sister, brother. But when you're referring to someone, it's just kind of like you. And I mean, it's not really.
And then it's context-based, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask y'all, what are some things that if you could, there's stereotypes about Enbys, non-binary people, that you would like to dispel? Can you think of any?
Someone else talk first. I keep talking over people, I feel like.
You're the expert. All right.
I feel like I'm doing it.
I feel like a lot of people think that I just want attention, which is the complete opposite. Like, don't look at me. Seriously, don't look at me. Don't pay me any attention.
Oh, God, that shit. Oh, you just want to be special.
There is that up.
Oh, you're just making it up because,
I just want to go unnoticed. Like, I just want to go into work and not talk to anybody and just listen to my podcast. Don't look at me.
Yeah,
I've had people assume that I don't get along with my dad because, like, I'm kind of feminine and I tend to date, like, men and or masculine people, and, like, I'm kind of like, no, I don't always get along with him, but he was always, like, pretty nice to me, so I don't know if that's really true.
What about you, Ari?
There are two that are coming to mind right now. One is, as we were talking about before with bisexual people, there's the idea that it's just a stepping stone to the next level. So you come out as non-binary first, and then a few years later, then you come out as binary trans because that's what you were the whole time. You were just scared to admit it, or you didn't realize your true gender. There is a tiny grain of truth to that. That does happen in some cases, or people identify as non-binary at first, and then their understanding of their gender changes. I've known people who have had that experience, so I'm not trying to discount that. But of course, it's not the same for everyone. I've been identifying as non-binary for like 4 years now, and I am definitely not moving in any sort of direction of a binary trans person. So there's that. I think people have the expectation that it's kind of just a stepping stone onto the next level of trans.
Well, it's a gateway drug, basically.
Exactly.
Being a non-binary is a fucking gateway drug.
That's right.
It's just Satan's lair. Everybody knows that. Anyway.
The other thing was people confuse expression with identity a lot. So people assume that all non-binary people are very androgynous looking, and, for example, like they wear pants and T-shirts, or they don't wear makeup, or they have short hair or whatever. Pretty much just think of like your stereotypical androgynous girl, and that's the stereotype of what a non-binary person looks like. And I fit that stereotype, so there you go. But plenty of people don't. They love to wear different types of clothes. There are people who are assigned female at birth who are non-binary who like to wear dresses and skirts and makeup and have long hair. Me. There are non-binary people who use she, her, or he, his pronouns. No problem with that whatsoever. They're still non-binary. So I just want people to realize that it's again, like everyone else, it's a huge spectrum of things. There's not one way to be non-binary, and just because someone looks androgynous or whatever doesn't mean that they're non-binary. That they could be have a total binary gender, and just that's the way that they like to dress, and that's the way they like their hair to be. So I would caution people against making assumptions about people based on appearance.
I say fuck them if you do that anyway, but that's just...
That's an interesting one, because I usually mostly wear men's clothes. For one thing, it's kind of like the flip side of what Ari was saying. Like, a lot of times I can't find any girls' clothes that fit me anyway. Mm-hmm. And another funny thing is, like, with long hair now, actually, I've had quite a few people mistake me as a woman, and then they apologize, and I'm kind of like, oh, I don't really care. That actually feels slightly better than the alternative, even though it's not exactly accurate.
It does feel good. I got gendered as male by a little kid a few months ago, and I was like, bless you, child. Like, I'm not a man, but you're the only person who has ever done that, so I love you.
Yeah, I can understand that. I
got gendered as a male before, too, and it's really weird because I don't look anything like a male. But it was kind of, I don't know, it felt weird, but it didn't feel, like, totally wrong. I was just like, oh, that was weird. And then someone actually referred to me, like a stranger referred to me in the neutral way. Like, they were with their kid, and they're like, I looked like a bum. I didn't have on any makeup, and I was just wearing a t-shirt and jeans, and they were, like, trying to get by me, and they're like, come on, little Timmy, let's get out of the way of this person. And in my head, I'm just like, oh, yeah, thank you.
Well, that should be, to me, the default anyway. I don't know why gender is such a big hang-up for most people.
Good fucking question.
I usually sort of talk, I mean, unless I'm in an environment where I know for sure the people there are going to be, like, really strict about it, like, I sort of approach everybody kind of neutral because I figured they can let me know
Yeah, I don't know. It's like I said, this is trying to change society's views on this kind of shit. It's like trying to turn the Titanic around. It's going to take forever. It's not going to turn on a dime.
I think assuming people's gender can also be like really affirming. Like I think Callie said before, like when people just refer to her as her proper pronouns, that not as they, that it's really affirming for her, and like I can understand that. So sometimes assuming people's genders is the right way to go. It's really hard.
Yeah. It's weird because you wish that no one would assume your gender so that you wouldn't get read the wrong way, and then you wish that everyone would just know what gender you are just by looking at you, so you wouldn't have to go through the whole song and dance every time.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a conundrum.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if I'm talking about someone I don't know, unless I'm absolutely sure that they probably want to be called woman, like if I'm in some kind of conservative environment or something. But aside from that, I usually will be like, oh, the person over there is looking for you. Because that way, I'm just addressing a person, and then they can tell me like anything that I need to know, basically.
Fucking political correctness ruining the society. This is why we have Trump. We have Trump because of asking people's pronouns instead of assuming shit.
Well, I'm glad you finally realized that, Ari. Jesus. It took you long enough. And your show's ruining shit, too, just to let you know. So.
It's ruining people's lives by being terrible.
And nobody likes it, so...
Yeah. I don't know why anybody would bother. Katie, did you have something to say? I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I totally forgot that I was going to add that I don't understand sarcasm, so whenever you guys are, like, joking like that, I take you seriously.
Oh.
So, yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Like, but it's like sometimes I can like understand like from context, or if you say it in like an overly sarcastic way. But, like usually I'm just like, oh.
No, I'm just an asshole by nature. So
no, it's totally like. Oh, this is just one of my questions. How do you feel like when someone refers to you as like dude, or you're in a group of like mixed gender and people call you all the group guys? How does that like make you feel?
I don't like it.
There you go.
Well, simple enough. There you go.
I don't like dude. I don't like guys. If someone just refers to me as he, that's not that bad. But something about like dude or guys or like grouping me in with those people, it bothers me. And also in situations where like if people like I find like if people are giving me male privilege for some reason, like that bothers me like even more like than maybe it should. But I mean, it should bother anybody, but like it makes me really uncomfortable.
How about you, Ari?
I personally don't mind it, but I think that's because I'm coming from a position of being assigned female at birth. So whenever someone calls me by a masculine type name, it's kind of refreshing. Like, you know, William, you were talking about before, someone thinking that you're a woman and you're like, oh, you know, that's kind of nice. Even though I'm not a woman, it's nice that someone is, you know, recognizing that I'm not just a man. So whenever someone calls me dude or you guys or like my partner calls me a good boy or whatever, it feels kind of nice to me, even though I'm not a boy.
A little trans man.
That's exactly right. No, it's true. Like sometimes he hugs me and he's like, "Who's my favorite trans man?"
Yeah,
and I'm like, "I'm not a trans man."
Man, that's what you said. Yeah, you said that before. All right, y'all. I need to wrap this up. Ari's the only one who actually has anything to promote, and since they are such a shameless promoter for their shit, well, let's let them get it out of the way.
Atheist Manifesto, SJW Circle Jerk, Ari Stillman on Facebook. That's all you need to know.
Ari Stillman 4@gmail.com. Don't do that. You have to. You fucking.
You don't have a fancy outro.
No, that is reserved specifically for the Atheist Manifesto.
Yeah, I don't get that.
I don't give away my work for free. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. There was some promises made, and I can't really tell you all what it is because it's kind of disturbing. But anyway, no, I'm just
Wait, what?
No,
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I know, I was fucking with you. Katie or William, do y'all have anything? Oh, Katie, don't you have a blog?
Yeah. So far I've only made one post, but I mean, if more people liked the page, I would write more on it.
Yeah, go check out Katie's page. I'll put up the show notes. Do you know the...
If anyone wants to like it, it's called Don't Call Me Lady.
Okay. And I'll put the link up.
I want to check that out.
Yeah. I'll put the link up in the show notes. How about you, William?
I was writing some wine reviews on a little blog, vineandvegetable.wordpress.com.
Okay.
And so far it's only been wine reviews, but I was thinking I might put some vegetarian recipes, so...
Okay, that's cool.
And people can add me on Facebook if they want to, because I like talking to people on Facebook.
That's cool. So your thing is William Ferguson, right?
Yes.
William Ferguson you can find on Facebook. I'm put the link to that up as well. I guess if you want people to friend you, I should put that up. So anyway, I think I want to thank y'all for coming on and talking about this. I think it's important that people understand what this is, even if we are a bunch of fucking SJWs and politically correct assholes. So, are we doing the circle jerk now?
Oh yeah, I'm jerking it hard.
Okay.
Circle jerk is fun.
Only sometimes, William. Only sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
It just depends on like who wins. You just have
to. It was a competition.
You have to set the rules at the beginning. Like, does the person who lasts the longest win, or does the person who?
I don't know how that works. Anyway, seriously, thank y'all for coming on, and I hope that everybody who is listening to this has learned more about non-binaries. Yeah, what the hell? Yeah, some redneck shit. Non-binary genders. So, education is always important, especially nowadays. I think in the era of Trump.
And reading is fundamental.
That's right. More you know. More you know. All right, y'all. Well, y'all take it easy.
Thanks for having us. It was a good discussion.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I feel so special. Thank you.
No problem. And thanks for Ari for coming on, of course, and being our token famous person, I guess.
And thanks to Katie, wherever they went.
Oh, I've texted them, and I'll deal with that. But yeah, thank y'all for coming on, and hopefully I'll talk to y'all later at some point. That'll do it for this episode of the Podunk Polymath Podcast. I want to thank William, Ari, and Katie for coming on and talking to me about non-binary, gender fluidity, and everything that's related to it. The issues that are related to it. I learned a lot, like I said. So, if you want to check out the show, of course, you can go to the webpage, is the podunkpolymath.com. The music is by ... and you can find their music at cdbaby.com/cd/... You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Google+. If you just look for the Podunk Polymath. The email is podunk.polymath@gmail.com. You can become part of the Patreon posse at patreon.com/the-Podunk-Polymath. If you want to call in and leave a voicemail, it's 615-378-POPO, which spells Popo, and the numbers are 7676, which stands for the double freedom that you get when you listen to the show. Of course, you can join the closed group, the Podunk Polymath Podcast Posse on Facebook. If you just go to facebook.com/group/the Podunk Polymath Podcast Posse, all those words separated by periods. Of course, if you go on the side panel, you can follow me on WordPress. You can follow me on Twitter and see my tweets in the little box right there. How convenient. Donate via PayPal button. You can subscribe on RSS. Get it on Google Play. Available on iTunes. Available on Stitcher. I can't even talk. There are buttons on the side panel for all that stuff. And then, of course, there's a button for the Patreon. If you want to join, recent posts and recent comments are also on the side of the page. Once again, I want to thank everybody for joining me. I really Love doing it, and I hope y'all love listening to it. And until next time, y'all take it easy now, okay?